Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today we'll be exploring the philosophy of Kabir.
Kabir!
Yeah, the 15th century Indian mystic poet. And we're not going the usual academic route, like looking at all of his, influences and his contemporaries and all that. Instead, we're going to be using an excerpt from a discourse by OSHO,
Okay.
the 20th century spiritual teacher, to guide our exploration. And as many of you know, Kabir's poetry is famous for its really unconventional wisdom. Osho actually called them ultipaansi, or upside-down songs.
Yeah.
It's a pretty fitting description, if you ask me.
Say.
So yeah, get ready for some intriguing perspectives.
Indeed, Kabir's verses are known to challenge our usual ways of thinking. And Osho, with his emphasis on direct experience, provides a really interesting lens to understand Kabir's work through.
Yeah, to kick things off, I found this part in the discourse where Osho talks about how philosophers, they analyze life from a distance, relying on intellect and logic.
Yeah.
And he contrasts this with what he calls a religious approach.
Right, and by religious, Osho isn't necessarily referring to organized religion.
Right.
He's talking about that direct experiential understanding that comes from silencing the mind and connecting to the very core of existence.
I see. So it's about going beyond the intellectual and experiencing truth directly.
Exactly. And that's where Kabir's poetry comes in. His verses aren't just clever wordplay. They're born from a place of profound inner experience.
That makes me wonder, do we know anything about the specific experiences that shaped Kabir's perspective?
Well, Kabir was a weaver by profession, living a simple life amidst the hustle and bustle of 15th century India. He didn't belong to any particular religious sect and criticized the rituals and dogmas of both Hinduism and Islam.
Really?
So his poetry reflects a deep understanding of the human condition, the struggles of the common man, and the search for truth that transcends religious boundaries.
Wow, fascinating. So he was already challenging the norms of his time just by existing.
Yeah.
It's like his whole life was an Ulta Beyonce act. No wonder his poems resonate with people from all walks of life, even centuries later.
Absolutely. And Osho points out that this experiential understanding can make Kabir's poetry seem paradoxical, especially if we approach it solely through logic.
Yeah, I can see that. It's like trying to explain the taste of chocolate to someone who's never had it before. You can describe the chemical composition, the texture, the aroma, but it's not the same as actually taking a bite.
Precisely. Kabir's poetry invites us to taste the chocolate, to move beyond the limitations of the intellect and experience truth directly.
Okay, I'm starting to get a sense of what makes his work so compelling. Now, a lot of his poems talk about Maya, or illusion, which is often interpreted as a call to renounce the material world.
Right.
But I have a feeling there's more to it than that.
You're right. There's definitely a nuance here that Osho highlights.
Right.
The concept of Maya, as Osho explains it, is not about denying the existence of the material world, but understanding its true nature. He cautions against interpreting Maya as a rigid principle leading to a constant struggle against reality.
So instead of rejecting the world, it's about understanding its nature. But how does one do that? Just thinking about it doesn't seem enough.
Osho suggests that this understanding is not something you arrive at through intellectual analysis, but something you realize through direct experience, through what he calls spiritual awakening. Kabir, through his poetry, points us in that direction. Take, for instance, his verse, Kahi Kabir te bila jogidarni maharas chaka. It translates roughly to, rare is the yogi who has tasted the essence of the earth.
He's advocating for embracing the material world. That feels like a very different message from the typical idea of renouncing worldly pleasures.
Right. Kabir challenges the traditional emphasis on renunciation, and Osho elaborates on this, suggesting that the material world is not something to be abandoned, but rather something to be understood and experienced fully. True fulfillment, they suggest, comes from recognizing the divine essence within the material, not through denial.
So not rejecting the world, but seeing the spiritual within the material, almost like finding the sacred in the everyday.
Precisely. It's about shifting our perception to see the divine play unfolding all around us.
So how does this relate to the upside-down nature of Kabir's poems? It's starting to seem more like an invitation to live fully and consciously.
That's a good observation. And this is where Osho's interpretation helps us unpack this idea further. He uses this brilliant analogy to explain the ride of life, comparing it to the dynamics between lovers.
Hold on, lovers.
Yeah.
How do they fit into this picture of spirituality and experiencing the divine?
It might seem a bit out there, but it's actually quite profound. Osho points out that in any healthy relationship, there's a natural rhythm of closeness and distance, harmony and conflict.
So it's not about constantly striving for a blissful state free of conflict.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that life is a dance. a constant interplay of opposites. Just like lovers need both intimacy and space, so too do we need to engage with both the material and the spiritual aspects of life.
That reminds me of the concept of yin and yang, the balance of opposing forces in the universe. There's a kind of harmony in that interplay, isn't there?
There is, and this brings us to another interesting verse by Kabir that Osho unpacks, Gavan hara kade nagave, which means the true singer never sings.
Wait, the true singer never sings?
It
That
is-
sounds like another one of those upside-down statements.
Yeah.
What's Kabir getting at here?
Osho explains it beautifully. He talks about the difference between performance and genuine expression. Think of a musician who's technically brilliant but lacks soul.
So it's about authenticity,
Yeah.
about art that comes from a deeper source, not just technical skill.
Precisely. True art, according to Kabir and Osho, arises from a state of overflowing being, not from conscious effort.
So not forcing creativity, but rather allowing it to emerge naturally. It's
Yeah.
like we're swimming in an ocean of creativity, but our minds are so cluttered that we can't hear the music.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's about cultivating inner stillness to tap into that ever-present source of inspiration. And this idea of the true singer never singing actually connects back to what we were discussing earlier about Maya.
Oh, I'm curious about that connection. How does cultivating inner stillness and authentic expression tie into the concept of illusion?
Well, remember that Maya isn't about the world being inherently unreal. It's about our perception of the world being clouded by our conditioned minds, our preconceived notions, and habitual patterns of thinking.
So it's like looking through a dirty window. The world outside is what it is, but we're not seeing it clearly.
Exactly. And by cultivating inner stillness through practices like meditation, we're essentially wiping that window clean. We start to see ourselves in the world more clearly without the distortion of our conditioned minds.
That makes sense. And when we see things more clearly, we can respond to life's challenges with more awareness and less reactivity. It reminds me of that quote often attributed to the Buddha, "Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional."
That's a great connection. It highlights the freedom that comes with self-knowledge. We're no longer at the mercy of our reactive patterns. We can choose how we respond.
It's fascinating how these ancient wisdom teachings align with modern psychological insights. It's like we're rediscovering these timeless truths through different lenses.
Absolutely. And Kabir's poetry, as Osho interprets it, offers a potent pathway to this kind of self-knowledge and freedom.
But how exactly does Kabir guide us on this path? His poems aren't exactly self-help manuals.
True. And that's part of their magic. Kabir doesn't offer a step-by-step guide. Instead, his poetry acts as a mirror, reflecting back our assumptions and prompting us to question what we think we know.
So instead of giving us answers, he's pushing us to ask better questions.
Precisely, Kabir's verses are like riddles, or koans, those paradoxical statements used in Zen Buddhism to provoke deeper inquiry and awaken us to a new way of seeing things.
It's like those optical illusions, where you can see two different images depending on how you look at it. The reality hasn't changed, but your perception of it has shifted. And that shift in perception can be quite profound.
Exactly. Kabir's poetry shakes us out of our complacency, disrupting our habitual ways of thinking and offering us a glimpse of a more expansive reality.
It makes me think of those aha moments, those sudden shifts in understanding that can completely change the way we see ourselves and the world.
And those moments are the stepping stones on the path to self-discovery and liberation.
And we talked about how Kabir challenges traditional ideas of renunciation, suggesting that true fulfillment comes from experiencing the divine essence within the material world.
Right. And this brings us to another fascinating concept that Osho explores, Nataraj, the dancing form of the Hindu deity Shiva.
Ah, yes, Nataraj. The cosmic dancer. I've always been captivated by those statues of Shiva in that dynamic pose. What's the connection to Kabir's poetry?
Osho uses Nataraj as a powerful symbol of the universe, as a continuous dance of energy. He suggests that by understanding this cosmic dance, we come closer to understanding the dancer, the divine principle behind it all.
So we're not just observing the dance, we're part of it. And through that participation, we can glimpse the divine.
Exactly. Just as a dancer expresses themselves through movement, so too does the divine express itself through the constant interplay of creation and destruction, expansion and contraction, light and shadow.
It's making me think about how we often try to compartmentalize our lives, the spiritual, the mundane workplay. But what if it's all interconnected? What if every aspect of our experience is an opportunity to witness and participate in this divine dance?
That's a beautiful question to contemplate. And it leads us to another one of Kabir's enigmatic verses that Osho unpacks. Dardi ulti akaash by
Oops.
Gross.
Okay, that one sounds intense.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. What does it mean?
It translates roughly to, the earth overturned and swallowed the sky.
Whoa, that's a powerful image. What's Kabir trying to convey here?
Osho interprets this verse as a metaphor for the ultimate spiritual realization, where the distinction between the inner and outer world dissolves. It's a state of consciousness where the boundaries between self and other subject and object completely collapse.
So it's not a literal swallowing, but a merging. A recognition that the separation we perceive is an illusion.
Precisely. True enlightenment, according to Kabir and Osho, is not about escaping the world, but recognizing its inherent unity with the self. It's about waking up to the interconnectedness of all things.
It's like that famous quote from the Sufi mystic Rumi. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, there is a field, I'll meet you there.
Yes, that captures the essence beautifully. It's about transcending the duality of our thinking and experiencing the unity that lies beyond. And this leads us to another crucial aspect that Osho highlights: the importance of self-knowledge as the foundation for true transformation.
Okay, self-knowledge. That seems a bit more grounded than the earth swallowing the sky.
Perhaps, but it's no less profound. Osho emphasizes that real change doesn't come from trying to fix individual flaws or striving to become someone else. It comes from understanding our true nature, accepting ourselves fully in shadows and all.
So it's not about self-improvement in the conventional sense, but self-discovery and self-acceptance.
Exactly. It's about peeling back the layers of conditioning and recognizing the radiant divine essence that lies at the core of our being.
And Osho suggests that meditation is the key to unlocking this self-knowledge.
Yes. Meditation helps us quiet the mental chatter, cultivate inner stillness, and access that deeper level of awareness where we can connect with our true nature.
It's interesting how we've come full circle back to the importance of direct experience, of silencing the mind to access a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
It's all interconnected. And Kabir's poetry, interpreted through Osho's lens, offers a profound and inspiring guide on this journey of self-discovery and spiritual awakening.
You know, it strikes me that Kabir, a simple weaver, was able to craft such profound and complex ideas into his poetry. How is it that these verses written centuries ago still feel so relevant today?
Kabir's poetry is timeless because it speaks to the universal human experience. His words bypass intellectual jargon and religious dogma, reaching straight to the heart of our shared longing for truth, meaning, and connection.
It's like his poetry is a secret code, unlocking the hidden wisdom within each of us. And through Osho's insights, we're able to decipher that code and apply its timeless wisdom to our lives.
Exactly. Osho helps us bridge the gap between these ancient teachings and the complexities of our modern world.
So after this deep dive, what's the one key takeaway you hope our listeners will carry with them?
I believe the central message that both Kabir and Osho emphasize is that the spiritual journey isn't about seeking something outside ourselves. It's about awakening to the reality that's already present within us.
It's about recognizing that we are already complete,
Yeah.
already connected to something greater than ourselves, and that our true potential lies in embracing the fullness of who we are in this very moment.
Yes. It's about shifting our focus from seeking to being, from striving to accepting, from doing to simply being present.
It's like that beautiful line from Rumi, what you seek is seeking you.
Exactly. The divine isn't something we need to search for. It's woven into the very fabric of our being, waiting to be recognized and expressed.
It sounds like the path to enlightenment, then, isn't a straight line to a fixed destination. It's more of a dance, an exploration, a lifelong process of uncovering and expressing our true nature.
Yes, and Kabir's poetry, with its playful paradoxes and profound insights, can be a wonderful companion on that journey. It can inspire us to question our assumptions, to embrace the fullness of life, and to awaken to the divine melody that's always playing within us.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Kabir and Osho, we'll leave you with a final thought. If the material world isn't something to be rejected, but rather a manifestation of the divine, how can we shift our perception to experience this inherent unity in all things?
We encourage you to explore these ideas further, to delve into Kabir's verses and Osho's teachings and see what resonates with you. Allow their wisdom to spark your own journey of self-discovery and awaken you to the boundless beauty and wonder that surrounds us.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.